You know, understandably, it is easy to lose track of what the administration's doing because of the constant drip, drip, drip of news about the White House or the Russia probe and all the, well, let's just say it, the shenanigans that seem to be coming out of the Oval here. But just today, new reports showing President Trump's relationship with Chief of Staff John Kelly show just how much this situation is deteriorating. About a week after Kelly went on Fox News and said the president was misinformed about the border wall, the president apparently barged into a meeting Kelly was having with the press and went off script on the Dreamers and the Mueller probe. Kelly then called the whole thing off. Then there's the news just out today that the EPA rolled back a major pollution protection that has been around for 20 years. It whittles away at the Clean Air Act and makes it even harder for the government to police major polluters like power plants and chemical factories. But I bet you didn't even hear about that. And the list, it goes on and on. Real serious issues here that are happening seemingly without coverage, all because of all the headlines being generated by the commander-in-chief. Well, there's a new book out, and it digs deeply into the substantive issues and deregulations that are going on in real time here. And the title, well, it says it all. It's even worse than you think, what the Trump administration is doing to America. I sat down with its author, David Cay Johnston, just yesterday before the latest Russia news broke. I start with a question that, do you almost hesitate to publish when you do this? Because by the next news cycle, after you go to the presses, another bout of insanity may have happened. I mean, there's no good time to do it, I guess. But particularly this president, do you feel like you almost left some chapters unpublished because at some point you had to print the thing?
Well, there's certainly things I wish I'd had another couple of months to write about. The book closed in late September. But I'm not covering what you're hearing in the news. This book is not about the palace intrigue and the craziness. It's about what's happening inside our government, where the Trump administration has loosed what I call political termites, and they're eating away at the structure of our government. They're putting your income, your health, your safety at risk, and journalists basically are not covering the government.
Well, give an idea to the public. What kind of things have we seen either through deregulation or just not populating positions where we just expect there'll be oversight, but there isn't?
Well, the Trump administration stopped putting up announcements of worker deaths where companies are fined for unsafe practices. Most employers try to do a good job, but there are bad employers. They have not even posted the notice of a death of a worker on the job since August, and they're refusing to give out statistical information at the Labor Department and many other agencies about things like this. In trade, Donald killed the Trans-Pacific Partnership, of which I was one of the leading critics, but he didn't replace it with anything. China has come along with what it calls the RCEP, and just ask yourself as a viewer, have you ever heard of the RCEP? That's the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. And 15 Pacific Rim countries, plus India, are now setting up a trading zone that we're not a part of. And China is telling the leaders of these countries, which include our most faithful ally, Australia, where I was recently and reporting on this, tilt away from America, pivot to us. America's in decline. Look who's in the White House. We're the country building wealth in the future. We're the country you want to be aligned with. And so we're falling behind in the rest of the world in economic progress, and we don't even have ambassadors in a majority of countries.
And David, just before somebody says, oh, well, you know what, I can't get my arms around trade, something as simple as if they go to the grocery store and they're picking up some meat here to cook up for dinner for the family, give an idea on just basic safety things that you would think are the most nonpartisan of issues, how all of a sudden, you know, that even goes by the wayside because it could be construed as somebody's overseeing big business.
That's exactly right. Nobody worries about opening a can of tuna or about the safety of the food we buy at the grocery store, even though food comes from all over the world. Right now, I have in my kitchen oranges that came from the Middle East, salmon that came from Norway, and other foods from far away. Well, we're cutting the number of inspectors, and we're not doing it just in food safety. We're doing it in environmental controls, where pollution is an issue. We're doing it in public health areas. The Trump administration came in with Steve Bannon saying, we are going to destroy, that's his word, destroy the administrative state. We're going to deconstruct it. And that's what they're doing. And, you know, all of us would like to have a better and smaller government, but the reality is we also don't want to worry about, is it safe to eat this? Is my job in trouble? Am I going to get killed on the job? Is somebody driving down the highway going to fall asleep at the wheel because they weren't tested for sleep apnea and kill me? And those are the things that this administration is getting rid of, and that's not in the news.
A lot has been made of some of the cabinet heads and the choices, and basically, almost to a person, they're taking over agencies that they vocally have said they want to either dismantle or get rid of entirely. If certain cabinet members even remember the agencies in question, see the late governor of Texas. Now, to that end, let's just use the education secretary as an example, because I think a lot of people watch this at home say, you know, I'm paying, you know, through the teeth here for my kid's education. The kid's going to be saddled with debt here. What's Washington doing to help me? Especially for those people who went to some of these for-profit schools. Talk about what she's done. She's been there, and who she's brought in to actually police the things that, in many cases, they were the root of the problem.
Well, Betsy DeVos, who is an heiress and a multi-billionaire, who has no experience in education whatsoever, went to private Christian schools, and is deeply involved in the charter school program in Detroit. And everybody in the charter school program, when you ask about it, they don't want to talk about Detroit. Let's talk about the charter schools in Rochester, New York, where I live, or New York. We don't want to talk about Detroit because it's a disaster. So we have this student loan crisis that we've turned college into a lending business, particularly private colleges, for-profit colleges. And who does Betsy DeVos bring in to deal with this problem? Why, executives from the companies that are behind the crisis. This is not having the fox watch the hen house. This is having the fox redesign the hen house for the benefit of the fox. And this is going on all throughout our government and other agencies as well.
I don't care what political persuasion our audience comes from. Usually, presidents, whether you love them or hate them, they have an agenda, and usually it's in the national interest. Now, we may disagree with it or whatever else. But as you write in the book, and I haven't heard anybody disagree with this, Trump's about Trump right now. And to that end, the thing that's bothered me the most is I don't think we're equipped, even though we've all learned the term about the emoluments clause, that we haven't really been prepared for somebody that's actually trying to self-deal and profit from the White House itself. Talk to the audience about the Trump Hotel in D.C. and how, forget about the dog and pony show with all the papers he put up on that desk with his attorneys and everything else. What's really going on there and why everybody should be concerned?
Well, when Donald Trump left the Capitol with his motorcade to go to the White House on Inauguration Day, he stopped the presidential vehicle, which is known as the Beast. And the whole family got out and they took a 2-minute turn on the street. What none of the television networks told you was that they stopped in front of the old post office that is now the Trump Washington International Hotel. The Trump Organization filed documents with the federal government saying they expected, because they leased the building from the federal government, to lose several $1 million in the first 90 days and millions more in the first year of that hotel. That hotel is making profits hand over fist. $68,000 a night revenue just for drinks in the bar, because stopping where they did, even though viewers on television didn't know where they stopped, foreign governments, lobbyists, people who want favors got the message. You will pay tribute to the Trump Organization and Donald Trump if you want any favors from this White House. And the Kuwaiti government, which holds a big party every year, partly to thank America for freeing them from Saddam Hussein, moved its party to that hotel, and lots of other people have too. And of course, he spent 1/3 of his presidency at Trump properties, where you and I, as taxpayers, as federal taxpayers, and if you live in Florida, New York, or New Jersey, state and local taxpayers, are spending enormous amounts of money on his properties, and we're doing so in violation of the emoluments clause, the domestic emoluments clause in our Constitution.
David, you have any idea where all that money raised for the inauguration went?
No, they refuse to say. They raised far more money than anybody else has, and they won't say. And that's significant because one of the things Donald has a long history of doing is hiding books and records. The city of New York went to audit his first big project, the Grand Hyatt Hotel, when he suddenly stopped paying anywhere near what he'd been paying. And they said, oh, the records were destroyed by flooding. Well, where are the electronic records, the auditors asked. And they said, oh, they were in Chicago. So the auditors go to them, oh, we accidentally erased them. It was a mistake last night, and we're so sorry. And the auditors kept pushing and pushing, and it took them months, but they finally found out that all the records, in fact, existed, and they had been hidden, and they got them. And lo and behold, Donald Trump was cheating the city of New York out of millions of dollars. He has done this his whole life.
Well, you've covered this man for more than 30 years, and as David said, when you strip away the scandal, the real scandal going on is what he has been doing to the government itself. Again, the book, It's Even Worse Than You Think, What the Trump Administration is Doing to America. David Cay Johnston. David, thank you for the time.
Richard, thank you.
All right, coming up next, we're going to pivot to a couple of issues very close to home. The first of which is a story we've been covering for a better part of a decade. Rape kits. A victim traumatized here from sexual assault goes in to have a DNA test taken and a rape kit processed from her obvious attack here. What happens after that may shock you, though, in the pursuit of justice. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.